Chickasaw culture, the foundation of who we are as a people, has been passed from generation to generation for over 12,000 years, ever dynamic and flexible, and has adapted over the centuries to meet the demands of outside forces. But no matter the pressure placed on our culture, the Chickasaw people have adhered to one overriding core principle. We are one nation, held together with a commitment to care for one another. My name is Micah Hart. I'm a proud citizen of the Chickasaw Nation. I created this video to share with you what is important to our people, the protection of our ancestors, the old ones.
The old ones, our ancestors, were the mound builders of the southeastern United States. As the name would suggest, these ancient peoples built a complex of earthen mounds that dotted the countryside. Those mounds were part of large complex villages with advanced social systems and governments. The mounds, these magnificent examples of human ingenuity, were used for a variety of purposes, which included ceremonial and burial activities.
Most of these mounds are located along the Natchez Trace Parkway. Some were constructed as support for buildings and activities, others as elaborate burial sites. Although we do not know the exact meaning behind these mounds, we do know they had a specific purpose in the southeastern ceremonial complex.
The Natchez Trace runs a great distance from Natchez, Mississippi to Nashville, Tennessee, approximately 444 miles, and it passes very near to literally dozens of mound sites, not all of which are interpreted on the Parkway. As far as Chickasaw history and culture, the mounds in North Mississippi and Northwest Alabama include the Bear Creek Mound along Bear Creek along the Mississippi-Alabama line, and then also Farr Mounds, a large middle woodland mound center. A very important mound site at Houston, Mississippi is called the Bynum Mounds. Bynum Mounds are primarily a middle woodland, again, burial mound and associated village or campsite, excavated in the 1940s by the National Park Service for interpretation along the Natchez Trace. But toward the end of the excavation, historic Chickasaw sites were located. Actually, graves were found at the Bynum Mounds, and it was a case where Chickasaws had reoccupied an ancient site.
By the time Hernando de Soto passed through our homelands in 1541, the mound builders had long since passed into history. For reasons unknown, the once great civilization had collapsed. What remained were smaller tribal groups. Among them were the Chickasaw. According to oral tradition, our first settlements were located near the Tennessee River in modern-day Madison County, Alabama. This place was called the original Chickasaw Oldfields. In later times, the tribe relocated Chickasaw Oldfields to northeastern Mississippi, near the headwaters of the Tombigbee River, where their settlements remained concentrated until the federal government removed the tribe to Indian Territory during the 1830s. The 300 years following the tribe's fateful encounter with the Spanish brought great change to the tribe. The effects of the Columbian Exchange were felt throughout the southeastern portion of North America as trade routes became firmly established, the most famous being the Natchez Trace. An Englishman by the name of James Adair began trading with the tribe in the mid-1700s. An amateur ethnologist of sorts, Adair recorded his thoughts and observations regarding the governmental structure and cultural practices of the Chickasaw people.
Adair was a consummate trader, but more than that, he considered himself a true friend of the Chickasaw. He arrived in our homelands in 1744 and did not leave for another 20 years. Through his writings, we are able to gather first-hand knowledge of our ancestors' burial customs in the 18th century.
For most traditional Chickasaws, spirituality is a way of life. All things and all beings are imbued with spirit and therefore must be treated in a sacred manner. There is a belief of a universal kinship between individuals and all of creation. And as part of that, there's a responsibility by the individual to do what is right, not only for oneself, but for all of creation, all of your relations. And this is not only for now, it's also for those relations of the past and those relations and generations of the future.
With the establishment of the United States of America, a movement began to find ways to separate Indian tribes from their ancestral homes through land cession agreements and removal treaties. For the Chickasaw, this process culminated with the signing of the Treaty of Pontotoc in 1832 and the Treaty of Dokesville in 1837.
The removal of the 1830s was a very sad time for our people. We weren't just leaving our homelands, we were leaving the old ones behind as well. Who would care for them? It was a responsibility our people had honored for hundreds of years. The removal process was difficult, but our people were resilient and reestablished their lives in a new home, Indian Territory. That eventually became the state of Oklahoma. Today, our tribal government is alive and well.
We are economically strong, culturally vibrant, possessed of energetic people still dedicated to the preservation of family, community, and sovereignty.
And we have not forgotten our beloved old ones. We have the ability to, again, take care of them, thanks to a law passed in 1990.
The law, commonly known as Nagpra, protects Native American graves on federal and tribal lands. It recognizes tribal authority over treatment of unmarked graves and prohibits the commercial selling of deceased Native Americans. It also requires an inventory and repatriation of human remains held by the federal government and institutions that receive federal funding. Nagpra further requires these same institutions to return inappropriately acquired sacred objects and other important communally owned property to proper Native American tribes. All universities and museums receiving federal money must summarize and inventory human remains and objects of cultural patrimony. Once the items have been identified, the museum community is required to consult with the appropriate Native American representative regarding the expeditious return of these funerary objects, sacred material, and items of cultural patrimony.
The Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, that's NAGPRA, Nagpra is what people call it. For tribes, it gives us an avenue to work with federal agencies, especially across the state of Oklahoma and in our southeastern homelands in several states, to become involved when they're doing things that might disrupt historic properties, or it might be a situation where Chickasaw graves were removed from the ground. It gives us actually the federal law gives us the ability to engage and do what we call consultation with many federal agencies whenever there's federal money being spent or whether a federal agency is going to issue a permit. So it puts us in a place we were never in before as tribes, that we have the right and we have the duty, I guess is the way to say it, and act as stewards for the government, for the Chickasaw people.
For the Chickasaw Nation, relationships with local, state, and federal institutions are vitally important when it comes to Nagpra law and the repatriation of our tribal ancestors.
Chickasaw Nation's relationship with the National Park Service is a very good relationship, and it's a very good working relationship. There are certain instances where the Chickasaw Nation has worked with the Natchez Trace Parkway to resolve certain Nagpra issues. We have worked with the Natchez Trace Parkway in even completing a reburial on the Natchez Trace Parkway.
When Chickasaws returned to their homelands there at the Natchez Trace, they returned to a sacred place. Oral tradition tells us the Creator, Abba Benili, gave us the gift of life through that land. It is the eternal home of so many who have come before us. They are sacred, as the land is sacred.
With Nagpra, we now have the ability to protect our ancestors. With Nagpra, we gather up the sparks of life so that they may be reunited with Abba Benili forever.